Part 121. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 1202. Although Lily just eliminated the mummy, because the corpse had been soaked in yin qi for too long, and the corpse should have some reputation, something was wrong before death. There was a lot of resentment on it, and it was brought back to life by popularity. She also ate blood and became even more ferocious. Her talisman couldn't restrain it for a while, so she had no choice but to reach out and come into contact with it. Although she has the Tao Te Ching in her body, her resistance to corpse qi is much stronger than that of ordinary Taoist priests, but there is something wrong with this corpse qi, and she is still infected with it. This ancient house is extremely dangerous, but Shenchuan is. She also pointed at herself and told him to kill someone. She didn't even have time to find a place to rest and recuperate the energy and blood in her body. She had to listen to Shenchuan's nonsense. Lily had murderous intentions in her heart and turned around to glare at him coldly. At a glance. Shut up. If Lily had talked to Shenchuan like this before, he might not have been afraid and would have retorted a few words. But it was different now. Lily had just killed people a moment ago, and she killed several people without blinking an eye. When he shut up like this, a look of murderous intent rushed into his face, which was completely different from his previous appearance. Shenchuan did not dare to fight with her like before. Dang even was so frightened that he took 2 steps back and held his hands. At the doorframe, I didn't dare to make a sound. After disposing of the mummy, there were only a dozen or so people present alive. Zhuang Tianming wiped his face and his eyes changed when he looked at Lily. He also saw the scene when Lily subdued the mummy just now. Guilty, originally I didn't notice a little girl, but unexpectedly at the end, the situation suddenly reversed, and she showed super powerful Taoism in an instant, and drove away the 2 ghosts of Sister Wang and the fat monk in one fell swoop. Explain. 2 more human skin lanterns were broken, and a fierce mummy that suddenly jumped out was killed. With such a strong backing, this ancient house was extremely eerie, but Lily's appearance still made the group of people feel like they had grasped at straws. At this moment, Zhuang Tianming's heart returned to its original place. After taking 2 deep breaths, he looked at Lily with much respect. I didn't expect Miss Song to be so skilled. Thank you very much for saving my life just now. There were dozens of people who came through the door, except for the 2 men and 1 woman who had just died at the hands of the mummy. Most of the people fled when the mummies jumped up and started eating people. Such an ancient house was full of dangers, but now everyone couldn't protect themselves, so how could they take care of others? Zhuang Tianming's eyes were dry. He had widened his eyes in extreme panic before, but now he felt something was wrong with his eyes and wanted to blink. But he didn't know if it was because of too much fear that his eyes stopped controlling. A large stream of sweat gathered from his forehead and flowed into his eyes. When his eyes hurt and tears flowed out, he blinked instinctively. I opened my eyes and felt like I had come to my senses. He was sweating profusely. When the wind blew, he shivered with cold all over, but the sweat flowed down like a waterfall. He wanted to raise his hand to wipe his face, but his hand was so weak that he couldn't lift it at all. These. He saw the corpses in front of him with the same death state. Black corpse water and mud were scattered everywhere. The smell of blood and putrefaction still made Zhuang Tianming retching twice. The shape of these dead bodies was not good looking, and their heads had been blown open. The sight was enough to give people nightmares, and he instinctively turned his face away. As soon as the words came out of my mouth. Lily, however, looked at the corpses lying on the ground without changing her expression. A few people were infected with corpse energy just now. If we don't kill them now, I'm not afraid of turning into zombies in the future, but I'm afraid you won't survive. In fact, whether these people are alive or dead has little to do with her. She had already warned others when she entered this ancient house. It was the people in the association who did not take this matter to heart. Now if she insists on coming in, no one will be able to blame her if she dies. But if she could save a few people, Lily would definitely save them, but if even Zhuang Tianming wanted to blame her for meddling, Lily would naturally be a little unhappy. After all, she must have avenged the original owner. After destroying this house, she must leave this ghost place. If she saves these people with all her efforts, she will bite her back after leaving, saying that it was her. If you kill someone, I'm afraid you won't be able to eat and walk around. It's not like she left this world immediately after leaving the ancient house. She couldn't possibly harm the original owner's reputation. If she left the ancient house and went to jail and couldn't take care of the original owner's parents, I'm afraid this mission would have failed. It would be fine if these people knew each other. If they didn't, although she didn't want many people to die, she would eradicate them if necessary. A murderous intent flashed through Lily's eyes. As soon as she said these words, Zhuang Tianming saw her brows frown. When he heard that these people who were killed were infected with corpse energy and would probably turn into zombies, cold sweat broke out all over my back again. The one mummy before was scary enough, but if there were a few more, wouldn't it be even more frightening to death? He nodded repeatedly, panting heavily but unable to speak, but Shen Chun frowned. This is just your guess. How do you know they will turn into mummies? Maybe there is a way to cure them. You are killing people. Are you humming annoying? Lily glanced at Shen Chun impatiently, with killing intent in her eyes. Since I have already killed people, believe it or not, I will kill you right away, and no one here can save you. When she was fighting with the mummy before, she forcibly tore off one of the arm of the mummy, and then used some unknown method to explode the heads of several people alive. At this time, these people's corpses were still on the ground. Lily said again. When Shen Chun died, Shen Chun broke into a cold sweat from fear. If Shen Chun hadn't believed that she would really kill him before, after all, the two grew up together and had such a relationship at home. The two had been ambiguous for a long time when they were young, including half a year ago when the two of them had an affair. When a person had not decided to come here, if the elders in the family had not broken the relationship between the two at that time, I am afraid that Lily Song might still be devoted to him until now. If he had not run away from home at that time, the elders of both parents, thanks to the matchmaking, the two of them may have already obtained their marriage certificate. At that time, Lily Song was very obedient to him. She would never say another thing when he said one thing. How could Shen Chun have thought that one day she would kill him? But the situation was different now. From the moment he said he would never marry Lily, Lily Song seemed to have given up on him. She no longer obeyed him blindly like before, and she never even looked at him with the same look. He had only said a few words, but she was already so impatient that she wanted to kill him. Shen Chun felt chills in his heart, feeling a sense of loss and feeling as if he had been slapped by Lily in front of others. The feeling of embarrassment is intertwined with each other. He obviously doesn't like Lily that much, and even Lily has different feelings from the person he imagined to marry, but the real girl who has always been obedient to him no longer looks like him. When I followed him like that, the feeling was still uncomfortable. Chen Chun gritted his teeth. Now that things have happened, those who know the current affairs are heroes. Lily is obviously impatient with him. If he continues to talk, the consequences can be imagined. Remembering Lily putting him down to the ground and giving him the punch when he entered the arch, Chen Chun blinked his eyes, endured the disappointment in his heart, and stopped making any sound. Seeing that Chen Chun was silent, Lily sneered, shook her arms that were numb due to the invasion of corpse poison, and said, "Pack up your things and let's go." There were several corpses lying on the ground, and several backpacks were still attached to these corpses. Now that everyone entered the house, they only encountered some minions. They did not see any truly fierce opponents. They did not know when they would be able to leave. Come to this ancient house. There are still about 10 people left. Each person brought limited dry food and water when they entered the ancient house. Now that these people are dead, the things they brought will naturally be taken over by the survivors. Zhuang Tianming heard Lily's order, gritted his teeth, suppressed the fear deep in his heart, and did not dare to look at the heads of these people that were blown to pieces like watermelons. He called on everyone to pull the backpacks off these corpses. He came down and leaned next to Lily. "Miss Song," Zhuang Tianming said hesitantly, his eyes full of fear, "so many people have died so far. In my opinion, this ancient house might. You've come here, do you think you can get out so easily?" Lily curled her lips, but the smile did not reach her eyes. "Now that things have happened, I will definitely have to walk through this ancient house. If you want to leave, just follow me. If it doesn't work, you can just leave on your own." As soon as Lily said these words, the few survivors were a little dissatisfied. There are many crises in this ancient house. The one before. The person who spoke was a middle-aged Taoist nun. She mentioned the one who suddenly jumped from the dry pool just now. The mummy that had risen was trembling all over. It was so frightened that it didn't even dare to mention those two words anymore. It only vaguely mentioned the word that appeared. So many people were already dead. "You're dead, why are you still staying in the house?" I said it. Lily raised her eyebrows and glanced at the middle-aged Taoist nun. "If you want to leave, you can do it on your own, I won't stop you. Most of these people are half-hearted. The purpose of sneaking in is to make up the numbers. Many of them are just like the people in the association, they are all masters with empty names, but they are doing the business of selling sheep over dogs. Staying with this group of people, these people are just this person is holding back, and whether he is dead or alive has nothing to do with Lily at all." 2 updates today. I have accumulated a lot of moral integrity. I have been thinking about society and peace recently, which are 2 deep issues. The purity of my soul has been raised to a new level. I will take a look at my Mary Sue halo for everyone. I really want you to. I was so intoxicated that I gave the ticket to me. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 1203. As soon as Lily said these words, the few survivors became a little unhappy. Except for Zhuang Tianming, who remained silent, Shen Chun also frowned. There is obviously something not right in this house now. In addition to the corpse goo, there is also the thing from before. He lowered his voice subconsciously, looked around warily, and instinctively moved closer to Lily. He asked, "Since you have the ability to deal with them, how dare we leave?" Chen Chun's words aroused the agreement of a group of people. In everyone's opinion, since Lily has the ability to deal with the mummy, it is naturally the safest to walk with her. Everyone treats her as a life-saving straw. Knowing that this house something strange made everyone want to leave immediately, but Lily still walked into the house. Such behavior aroused everyone's anger, and they all accused her. "Since you have the ability, just protect us and go back first. How long can you waste? That is, if you want to come in again, just come back by yourself." Someone agreed, and then a young man cried, "My son was only 6 months old, and I really don't want to die here. Everyone came here for money. If they had known that this business was very dangerous, no one would be willing to come even if they were given twice as much money." Everyone's words made Lily upset, and her arms were already a little numb. There were indeed many dangers in this ancient house. If she encountered the next mummy, even if she could not die, she would have to suffer a lot in this state, and even more. What's more, the most dangerous thing in this ancient house is not just the mummy from before. She raised her hands, and the palms of the hands that had touched the mummy were now a little black, and a black line followed the palms to her arms. As if she came to life, Lily resisted the numbness and pulled the bag to her chest. Her arms were extremely numb. She lowered her head and opened the zipper of the bag with her mouth, revealing a large number of charms inside. In such a dangerous place, charms are more eye-catching than gold and silk. This is something that can save lives. Everyone saw that she had just picked up these talismans. Not only did he use this talisman to burn the fat monk, but he also drove away the ghosts of the two men. He also used this talisman to turn the fierce mummy into corpse water. If you have these talisman papers, you don't have to be afraid of any monsters or monsters. With so many talisman papers, you can grab a handful and sprinkle them when you are in danger. These talisman papers are enough for everyone to return. The young man who had been crying for his son who was just 6 months old suddenly had a fierce light in his eyes. He reached out and grabbed Lily's bag. "Bitch. If you don't leave, I will leave. If you don't leave, you'll die here." He pulled the bag and pulled hard. Lily didn't expect him to grab things at first, but when she came to her senses, several people around her had surprised looks in their eyes. The man was holding a bag in one hand and a fist in the other, trying to pull Lily over the head. Lily's eyes darkened. She just didn't want to attack these people, but it didn't mean that she didn't dare to attack them. The man's actions made her feel murderous, and her spiritual energy coursed through her body. She clenched one hand into a fist and faced the young man's fist. The man originally thought that his punch would definitely make Lily dizzy, and when he successfully grabbed the things and left, he didn't expect Lily to fight back at this moment. There was a bang sound when the two fists collided, and there was a clicking sound from the man's arm bones. As soon as he showed pain on his face, and before he could scream, Lily had already removed the hand holding the bag. Turning around, the man's hand was still holding onto the bag and refused to let go. He was unsteady on his feet as she held her like this. The body turned around. His wrists were entangled with the straps of his backpack and turned around, causing Lily to lock his wrists with the straps of his backpack and use his arms as shackles. The posture that trapped him in front of him. Before the man could react, Lily had already pulled his own arm. With just a shake, a chilling sound of broken bones was heard. The man opened his mouth wide. The arm with the broken bones was as limp as a rope. Lily strangled it on his own arm, and before the screams and painful moans could escape his neck, there was only a click sound, his chin was lifted up, his eyes quickly filled with blood, and his throat bone had been strangled. His head dropped down and rested on his arm with a bang, and he was already breathing out but not taking in. Lily killed the man cleanly, and then she snorted and pushed the lifeless man to the ground. The man's body with his neck broken fell softly to the ground, and Lily kicked him in the leg. The corpse kicked him away so as not to block his way, then bent down to untie the backpack strap on the other side of his wrist and put it back on his body. "Who wants to leave? She just killed someone in the blink of an eye." This time, she didn't kill someone who was poisoned by corpse poison, but someone who was killed regularly. Her killing gestures were skillful and neat, and it really didn't look like that. First time doing it. When everyone heard her question, they felt a chill rising from their spines. They all looked at her with fear in their eyes. How could anyone dare to take advantage of her again? At first, if there were still people who had the same idea as the young man, but after seeing the young man's fate, no one said anything anymore. Everyone shook their heads desperately, and then Lily curled her lips and tilted her head. "Then let's go." Everyone in the team looked down upon her at first, and no one would listen to her. Lily was young and lacked prestige. Even if she had killed the mummies before, not many people were afraid of her. Now she is killing a chicken to show the monkeys. This group of people was calmed down, and even the cheerful Shenchun did not dare to speak again. Everyone acquiesced in the fact that she was the leader of the team. Lily carefully opened the pond in the middle of the courtyard, and then started walking into the house with a flashlight. Without the smell of blood and corpses at the entrance of the main courtyard, the musty smell of the ancient house itself and the smell of decay in the courtyard spread into the nostrils. The group's entry seemed to wake up the courtyard that had been sleeping for 100 years. Dust was raised as everyone stepped on it. The courtyard of the ancient house is rectangular. The gate through which Lily and others enter the courtyard is just a corner of the courtyard. They have to walk along the courtyard until they reach the leftmost courtyard. There will be a backyard exit at the back. Then the right person will be waiting for them right there. This rectangular courtyard is divided into 3 buildings. Each courtyard is connected by a corridor and has an ingenious shape. The red-painted roof beams have long since decayed over 100 years, and are covered with spider webs. The wooden beams have long lost their color, becoming dark and dull, with a sense of oppression. There is already a corridor directly in front of the pool. There are 6 steps leading up to the veranda. On the right side, there is a door carved out of wood, which is connected to the entrance to the yard. Lily took the lead and walked towards the stairs. The wooden ladder was already covered with moss. After so many years, the wooden ladder had already become somewhat decayed. It creaked when you stepped on it, as if it was about to break in the next moment. Average. The remaining people walked in fear. The scene of the young man falling into the pool still appeared in everyone's mind. They were all afraid that the wooden ladder would break if they stepped on it, and then they would fall into the pool and get back in again. Come up with something. There are handrails on both sides of the wooden ladder. The wood is somewhat rotten. It is very cold to the touch. Every time you press a finger mark, the things here are very evil. No one dares to reach out and touch them casually. Every step is stepped on the wooden corridor. At this time, the sound and the creaking of the wood were enough to make people go crazy. The walk made the group frightened, but Lily was very calm. When she passed the carved gate, the front suddenly became clear. Through the layers of porches, Lily could already see the scene in the inner courtyard. This courtyard was slightly larger, with stone tables and chairs in the middle. However, because it had been abandoned for many years, it was already overgrown with weeds and some corridors. Fungus, wild mushrooms and other things were already growing in the wood. Lily found a place to stop temporarily. Let's rest for a while. It was so quiet here that you could hear your own heartbeat clearly. In fact, several people had been scared for a long time. They wanted to go back but did not dare. However, they had to follow Lily because of her strong strength. Around me, when they heard her suddenly speaking, everyone trembled for a moment, and then when they came back to their senses, they all panicked again, hugging their shoulders and looking around. In fact, the surroundings were already dark. Although everyone was still holding flashlights, the light that shone out not only did not make people feel at ease, but instead became even more terrifying as everyone's shadows were pulled to the ground by the light. Coupled with the unfamiliarity of this courtyard, the natural feeling of uneasiness that arises when people are in such a dark environment makes even the oldest and most stable Zhuang Tianming a little unable to bear it. Miss Song, I really need to take a rest here. There is a problem in this yard, and something more powerful has not come out. I have just been poisoned by corpse poison, and I need to take care of myself. Lily nodded. As soon as she said this, everyone except Zhuang Tianming and Shen Shun, the other people were almost crying. What should we do? Now everyone was pointing at Lily. They were all frightened when she said that there was something more powerful in the yard and that she had been poisoned by corpse poison. Chen Shun was also frightened. Everything that happened today completely overturned all his previous perceptions. He was inevitably a little scared about this unknown situation. As soon as Lily finished speaking, he couldn't help but complain in fear and shock. He said, since you know that you have been poisoned by corpse poison and there is something powerful inside, don't come in without overestimating your capabilities. She refused to listen to others' advice and directly punched the man before and strangled the neck. Second update, no more today. The new year is coming soon, pigs need to be fed more to celebrate the new year. I am the author you love so much, can you bear not to give me some monthly votes? I don't want to be treated worse than a pig. It's all in vain that I have to be toyed with to death or alive by you every day, toyed with. To be continued. Carrot. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 1204. Thinking that the man who was beaten to death by Lily said that he had a half-year-old son at home, Shen Chun felt an unspeakable disgust for Lily. He didn't expect that just because he refused to marry her, this woman would change so much and become so vicious and indifferent to human life. Now it seems that he was right to refuse to marry her, but Shen Chun refused at that time. It's just because Lily Song is not the other half he imagined. The two of them are more than friends, not lovers. In fact, he has also thought that if he still can't find the girl he likes before the age of 40, he might as well forget about marrying Lily Song. The two of them live their lives together. But now that he thinks about it, he was right in deciding not to marry Lily. Now, isn't her true nature exposed? Where I want to go is my own business and has nothing to do with you. If you want to leave, you can get out now. Lily stared at Shen Chun with a cold expression. I'm warning you, if you let me hear it again, if you say that, don't blame me for being rude. Now I don't want to hear your nonsense, you'd better keep your mouth shut. Shen Chun was so scolded by her, his face turned blue and white from holding back, his lips moved, and he wanted to retaliate openly like before, but when he saw Lily's cold eyes, he swallowed the words on his lips. Fortunately, everyone was panicking at the moment, and no one noticed the way he looked when Lily just scolded him. Shen Chun was so angry that he lowered his head and stopped talking. The house became quiet again. Once everyone stopped, their nerves were still tense. I didn't dare to relax and take a real rest, and I didn't dare to look around for fear of seeing something I shouldn't have seen. What's more important is that it's impossible not to look. Otherwise, if something appears, you won't be able to escape. Under such torture, Lily stretched out her hand and took out a peace charm. You can wear this thing on your body and have a good rest. If something unclean comes, it can also serve as a warning. We won't be able to get out of this ancient house in a short time. Yes. It's good to rest for a while to recuperate. Everyone has been coveting her talisman for a long time, and they were also very moved after hearing Lily's words. Everyone was nervous all the way in. In fact, they were already exhausted. As soon as Lily finished speaking, everyone hurriedly stepped forward to receive the peace charm, and they all held it tightly in their hands. Only then did a few people stay together. Son, I feel a little more relieved when we hug each other. The men huddled among themselves. With the peace talisman, everyone seemed to have found spiritual sustenance. They were all so frightened that they covered their ears and closed their eyes, not daring to look around. Lily glanced at the group of people, then stretched her body and did a few physical training movements. As the spiritual power entered her body, the Tao Te Ching in her body slowly started to move, and the corpse poison on her hands quickly fade away. Before half of the physical training exercises were completed, the numb feeling in his arms had already dissipated. Lily first took out the bread in the bag and ate one, and then drank 2 mouthfuls of water. After her stomach felt 80% full, she put the things into the bag and shouted, "Everyone, eat something and leave quickly." Before, everyone rested in a group, but now their arms were a little stiff. After Lily shouted, several people reluctantly stood up. He said he couldn't eat it. Now that you have rested enough. The corpse poison in Lily's body was also expelled, and the others naturally had to continue on their way. The further they walked in, the stronger the yin qi inside became. That cold feeling came from my heart, and by the end, my feet were a little numb. As soon as they entered the second courtyard, there was a man wearing glasses who looked to be in his 30s and waved his hands. He was breathing heavily and couldn't speak clearly, saying that he couldn't walk anymore. People's yang energy is consumed quickly in the yin energy, and it is easy to be weak. Coupled with the tension and fear in the heart, the fatigue increases exponentially, and everyone can't walk. This courtyard is roughly the same as the previous one. It's just that in addition to the weeds all over the yard, there are several dry unknown branches, and there is a rockery stone table next to it. Everyone is leaning against each other and breathing heavily. Shen Chun's face is already a little green, obviously. It's because of taking in too much yin energy. Take a rest. The man wearing glasses said hoarsely and waved his hands. His legs were shaking so much that Zhuang Tianming obviously couldn't bear it anymore. Lily hesitated for a moment and nodded. Something is wrong here, the yin energy is too strong, and there is also a faint smell of corpse, and the female ghost in the plot has not appeared yet. Could it be that she is hiding in the yard behind? She pursed her lips, then suddenly reached out to take out cinnabar from her backpack, took mineral water and mixed it thoroughly. While chanting a spell, she drew a circle in front of everyone. You stay in the middle and have a good rest, and don't go out. Although I don't know what her intention was, the big guy naturally nodded at this moment. Several people sat down and beat their legs, panting again. Suddenly, a series of dong 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 footsteps came, as if there were many people rushing over here, and a few people who had just relaxed were frightened. Ji Ling straightened her back. There was no one in the ancient house at all. The footsteps seemed to be the sound of someone running in the corridor. The corridor was made of wood and was old. It made a sound every time you walked, not to mention how loud it was when running. The ancient house was so quiet, so the footsteps seemed particularly abrupt. A group of people instinctively hugged each other. A flashlight suddenly lit up at the corner in front, and an excited and trembling voice rang out. Mr. Zhuang, is that you? Zhuang Tianming, who was sitting in the cinnabar circle, heard someone calling him. He stood up in excitement and subconsciously rushed towards the source of the sound. Lily stretched out her hand to grab him and shouted, "You crazy!" Only then did Zhuang Tianming seem to react. His legs were trembling, and he sat down on the ground with a thud. The voice was getting closer and closer, and it was still asking him. Mr. Zhuang, is that you? Where are you? We are here. Before Lily could stop drinking, Shen Chun suddenly answered loudly. The corner of Lily's mouth curled up and she said softly, "Idiot." It's just that Chen Chun and others were so excited that they didn't notice these two words she said, and naturally they didn't notice a dark light flashing across Lily's eyes very quickly. After hearing Chen Chun's reply, the group of people seemed to have finally determined their direction and ran towards this direction. Many people were holding flashlights in their hands, and some were carrying backpacks. The leader was carrying a camera before, but ended up in the man from the TV station who spotted Fat Monk and Sister Wang on camera. When they saw the crowd, their eyes lit up and they suddenly laughed. Sure enough, I found you. After the group came in, they dispersed. In addition to the people who ran away when the TV station encountered the mummy when entering the courtyard, there were also a few people who were scared away because the Fat Monk was devoured by the corpse goo. They seemed to be among them. A total of there were about 20 or 30 people, and it seemed that there were many people there, much more than the people here. Originally, Lily and the others were only a few, but when everyone was frightened, they suddenly met so many acquaintances, and they were all still alive. It felt like they were in a crisis, and they thought they would die, but suddenly I found my own people and felt like I was being rescued. When there are more people in the circle will naturally become more courageous. Everyone's faces showed joy, and Zhuang Tianming in the circle couldn't help but laugh. When the group of people were about to move towards them, the man from the TV station who led them suddenly spotted Lily, and he suddenly let out a sharp and terrifying sound. Screamed, and his face was so horrified that it was distorted. What happened? The man looked as if he had seen the most terrifying thing in the world, and his expression was a bit ferocious. Zhuang Tianming couldn't help but ask questions. The man pointed at Lily and shouted, "Ghost, ghost, ghost." One sentence was like a pebble falling into a calm lake, causing a huge wave. The people in the circle were confused by his scream. This ancient house was eerie and terrifying, but someone mentioned the word ghost again, which made everyone turn pale with fright. One young girl's face changed. Ghost, where is the ghost? She was about to cry. She wanted to hide instinctively, but she couldn't take a step forward. Lily stood in the circle, holding her hands on her shoulders, looking at the people outside the circle and sneering. The man who pointed at Lily and shouted ghost was trembling. Pouting her lips, she is a ghost. How can it be? Zhuang Tianming shouted subconsciously, and the man's eyes showed despair and fear. Yes, it's true. If you don't believe it, don't believe it. Just look at it. When he spoke, he pointed his hand behind his head, and in the darkness, he ran over each of the people, held a flashlight in their hands, illuminating the originally eerie old house very brightly. In the direction of the man's finger, both people outside the circle and people within the circle could see the crowd outside. In the middle, a girl carrying a backpack, holding a flashlight, wearing a t-shirt on her upper body and jeans on her lower body, was staring at Lily in fear. Her eyes seemed to have seen a ghost, her lips were slightly open, and her face was horrified. The color looks exactly like a lily. Wow, the crowd suddenly became commotion. Lily raised her lips, and when people in the circle saw this scene, their faces turned pale with fright, and their legs were shaking so much that they could hardly stand up. Why, how come there are two identical people? A man wearing glasses who ran away from the circle held his head and screamed. There was a deathly silence in the courtyard. Another Lily in the crowd trembled all over. Ghost, ghost. She looked so frightened that she was scared to death. The cracked appearance aroused the pity of many people, and at the same time, the people who followed Lily in the circle also started to cry. To be continued. P.S. First update recommended monthly tickets. Where can I send them? Give it to that relative, my little Wan Wan. Everyone, please sing this song more if you have nothing to do. I have been singing it every day recently. This is a great song. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 1205. Shen Chun also looked panicked. He was originally a standard atheist, but what happened now was beyond his imagination. Now two identical lilies were standing in front of him, looking like twins and wearing the same clothes. Needless to say, there must be something wrong with Lily among them. Come out quickly, what are you doing in there? Come here quickly, the man who first pointed at Lily and called her ghost shouted at Zhuang Tianming and others with a crying voice. The people in the circle instinctively panicked and wanted to run towards them. I think she looks more like a ghost, Lily suddenly said, and the person who was about to run suddenly stopped and stared at the people outside with a tearless expression. The other Lily outside shook her head desperately, looking frightened and helpless, crying like pear blossoms. I'm Lily Song, I'm Lily Song. Chen Chun, come here quickly. Chen Chun was in a state of confusion at this time. He and Lily Song had grown up together, but now he couldn't tell which one was the real Lily Song. Even any fool knew that there could only be one of the two lilies. It's true, he was very anxious in his heart. The yin energy in the house was so heavy, but in just a few minutes, he had broken out in a lot of cold sweat and his clothes were all wet. Come here, she's a ghost. Lily seemed a little anxious, as if she was worried about Shen Chun but didn't dare to get close to Lily. Shen Chun gritted his teeth and felt his throat was dry. He swallowed with a gulp, and his forehead was covered with cold sweat. The sweat beads gathered together to form streams, and poured into his eyes, stinging them. But he was so nervous that he didn't even dare to blink. He couldn't make a wrong choice. Once he made a wrong choice, if he knew that one of the parties was up to something, the outcome would definitely be miserable. So many people had died in the house today, and the fate of those who had died was placed in front of him, and he did not dare to let it go easily. Chen Chun, what are you waiting for? That Lily was even more anxious. Biting his lip, you can't have anything happen to you here. If something happens to you, what will I do? Me, 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 you wanted to marry me as your bride from the novel, have you forgotten? After hearing this, Shen Chun was shocked and glanced at Lily opposite. There was even more struggle in his eyes. Lily Song used to look at him with this kind of mood, but recently, since he said he would not marry her again a few months ago, Lily Song has never mentioned it again. At this time, looking at the picture that she had seen since childhood, seeing such a familiar face say such words again, Shen Chun's heart struggled even more fiercely. He instinctively glanced at Lily, then at Zhuang Tianming and others. Only then did Shen Chun realize that while he was struggling in his heart, Zhuang Tianming and others had moved to the corner of the circle, far away from Lily. What to do, what to do? Which of you is the real one? Is it true? Tell me the reason. Chen Chun clenched and loosened his fists, then clenched them tightly again, and suddenly spoke. As soon as he said these words, everyone in the circle nodded. Seeing this scene, the crowd outside could not help but grit their teeth and stamp their feet. The leading man said, after entering this ancient house, something happened to Sister Wang first. As you all know, the fat monk also died at that time, and was killed by the weird bug. Someone ran away first out of fear, and we entered the courtyard. Didn't we meet Wu Ming and the others? When he mentioned the name of Wu Ming, a misty look flashed in the man's eyes, and then he said, we ran away quickly, but after running out, we met Leopard and the others, and then we met up with these people. Lily Song has been with us. She is not a human. This house is not clean, it is not clean, there is a ghost. As soon as the man finished his words with a cry, everyone in the circle went crazy. What he said was reasonable, not to mention there were so many people outside who said Lily was a ghost. People are like this. I think most people said it must be the truth. At this time, more than 20 people who came over said Lily was a ghost, and many of the remaining people believed it. Some people thought of Lily's cold appearance. She took the talisman and stuffed it into the mouths of those who were infected with corpse poison. How could such cruelty and ruthlessness seem like something a normal person could do? In addition, she strangled the man's neck just because he had a disagreement with her. Many people were panicking. People outside were still shouting, come out quickly, she will hurt you, think about it. Those who had died at Lily's hands before heard people outside shouting that Lily would kill them, and many people panicked. Several people had expressions of excitement on their faces. For some reason, Shen Chun felt that something was not right about Lily before, as if he had changed into a different person. But at this critical moment, he hesitated. He instinctively stood still and did not move. After hearing the man's explanation, he turned and stared at Lily. Now it's your turn to explain. Why should I explain? Lily suddenly felt a little ridiculous. She lowered her head. You can believe it if you want, forget it if you don't believe it. I said, don't step out of this circle, otherwise your life and death have nothing to do with me. As for if you want an explanation, don't ask me, she frowned. When she heard that she didn't even want to explain, Zhuang Tianming's face became even more panicked. Another Lily opposite suddenly shouted, she must have a guilty conscience. I'm speechless. As soon as he finished speaking, several people in the circle started shaking their legs fiercely. Come here quickly, she will hurt you. Such words were particularly convincing at this time. There were originally 13 or 14 people squatting in the circle, but now 5 or 6 people tightened their bags and rushed outside. In the past, the remaining people had uncertain expressions. They turned their heads and glanced at Lily, then looked outside, with no tears left. I want to go out, I want to go out. Come out, let's go out together. When the people outside saw these people coming out, a faint light flashed in their eyes. The man from the TV station waved to the people in the circle again. The remaining 7 people hesitated and watched. He looked at Lily and then outside. Among the group of people who stayed, Zhuang Tianming did not leave the circle. The few who stayed, including Shen Chun, all stared at Zhuang Tianming. "Mr. Zhuang, what do you think we should do? What should we do? Miss Song." Zhuang Tianming glanced at Lily in panic, with a look of pleading in his eyes. He is the leader of this group of people. He originally has the most calm and responsible personality. Everyone trusts him very much, including Lily Song, who also respected him very much in the plot. After entering this ancient house, he does not treat Lily like others. Normally questioning and complaining, but now hearing him speak, Lily sighed. "Mr. Zhuang, since you haven't gone out, you know the answer is in your heart." Zhuang Tianming looked confused, his heart beating very fast. What do you mean? Do you think these people can survive after entering the ancient house and everyone disperses?" Lily stared at the ground. The yard was illuminated extremely brightly by the lights held by the people outside. The panic on each of these people's faces seemed to be engraved on their faces. Zhuang Tianming was shaking even harder. Somewhat, he wanted to ask Lily what she meant by saying such words, but he opened his lips, but no sound came out at all. "Come out quickly, Mr. Zhuang, she is a ghost, she is a ghost, let's go out together." The 2 remaining people in the circle became even more panicked when they heard this. Everyone has been afraid of this ancient house for a long time, and they have longed to go out. Someone suggested going out before, but Lily refused to leave. Now, most of the familiar faces outside said they wanted to go out in a group. These words hit the desire in everyone's heart, and among the 5 people who stayed in the circle except Lily, Chen Chun, and Zhuang Tianming, another person was moved and suddenly ran out of the circle. "I am affected by this. No, I want to leave this hellish place, I want to go back, I still have relatives and friends at home, I can't stay here, I don't want to stay here, I want to go out, let's go out. Come with us, come with us. Miss Song." Zhuang Tianming called Lily again in fear, and Lily sighed silently. When he saw the person who ran out looking like he was surviving a disaster, he ran into what he thought was a large army, with a look on his face. With a look of relief and joy, she looked indifferent. Those who enter this house will not be able to survive without Taoist law to protect themselves after running away. They have been together all the way before, so why bother to harm others after death? Lily raised her eyelids and stared at the opposite side. "Ask." The person opposite was still smiling, and the man who spoke first smiled. "You are the ghost, you want to harm them. Whether it's a ghost or not, you'll know when you come here." Just now, these people were waving to the people in the circle, but now Lily had already waved to them. Zhuang Tianming was flustered by this turn of events. He was on edge. The person opposite said that Lily was a ghost. Now Lily said that the person opposite was a ghost. Who is the real ghost? The remaining people in the circle cried sadly, hugging each other and biting their lips, not daring to say a word. "We can't come over. You want to kill us like you killed others. Mr. Zhuang, come here quickly. There is something wrong with her. She will kill you." The man shook his head and just entered the circle of people. When several people heard Lily saying that these people were dead people, their faces turned pale with horror. When they heard both sides blaming each other, people in the circle naturally hoped that Lily was a human being and not a ghost, while those who ran out naturally hoped that the people here are humans and Lily is a ghost. Now both sides are insisting on their own opinions, but the people following both sides don't know what is going on, and they are hugging each other and trembling. Chen Chun, come quickly. If you die, how will I explain to your parents?" The Lily opposite suddenly started crying, and Shen Chun was even more confused. He stared at Lily with tears about to flow out. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 1206. You don't have to talk so much nonsense. Lily listened to this group of ghosts crying and wolves howling, and suddenly sneered, "Look at their feet, the lights here are so bright, if a person has a physical presence, there will be a shadow, and the soul is transparent. You idiots still want to ask me what to do, see if there are any shadows under their feet." Following her words, everyone subconsciously lowered their heads to look. There were 20 or 30 people standing opposite, including the 8 people who had just ran over. There were nearly 40 people in total. These people all held flashlights in their hands, illuminating the yard shrouded in black mist. But in such a bright place, there were more than 40 people, but only the 8 people who had just ran past were at their feet. Ah! When the woman who ran over just now saw this scene, she was so horrified that half of her soul disappeared. Her face was twisted, and she screamed in an unusually sad and miserable manner. The people in the circle shook even more violently. The faces of the 8 people who just ran past turned black in an instant, and they all tried desperately to hide in the circle. However, it was easy to run out before, but now it is difficult to come back. Because of their extreme fear, their legs seemed as heavy as iron and lead, and they could not lift them at all. When the 20 or 30 people who came behind heard Lily's words, some of them looked blank at first, and then when they lowered their heads and looked at their feet, some of them had humanized looks of fear on their faces, and many of them had humanized looks of fear on their faces. It was as if he was remembering the most painful thing in his life. What happened next was even more creepy. The man from the TV station suddenly felt as if 5 sharp objects had been inserted into his forehead. His Tianling cap was torn open by someone, and a large amount of blood poured down his brow, lips, and ears. In this crowd, there were also shadows of Sister Wang, Fat Monk, and Wu Ming who died before. Wu Ming was wrapped in the green light, and his skin was so transparent that it looked like there were blisters all over his body, as if he were covered in a layer of human skin. It contained a cocoon of flesh and blood. Are we dead? These people died in all kinds of strange ways. Some of them were so frightened before they died that their souls left their bodies, and they didn't even know they were dead after they died. They were confused until what Lily said woke these people up. Among these ghosts, the only one that had not changed was the woman who looked exactly like Lily. Ah! The people who ran out of the circle let out heart-piercing screams when they saw this scene. The ghost next to them couldn't hide it anymore and reached out to catch these people who ran out of the circle. But as soon as they touched them, golden light burst out from these people. In addition to those who were touched, who were frightened out of their wits, the ghost who reached out first was also seriously injured and let out a shrill scream. There are several ghosts whose souls are unstable and their bodies are even somewhat transparent under the refraction of golden light. That was the effect of the peace charm Lily gave to these people. The 8 people who originally thought they would die after running out saw such a scene. There was joy on his face, and he desperately wanted to run into the circle. But if the duck is put where its mouth is, how can the ghosts be willing to let these people run away? Lily herself has no need for peace talismans, so most of these peace talismans are used in the early stage of training. In the later stage, when the Taoist skills are advanced, most of the talismans drawn are various powerful ones such as the 5 thunder spells that can destroy evil spirits. Spell. Therefore, although the talisman paper had the effect of blocking ghosts at the beginning, the yin energy in this place was extremely strong, and the 8 people were surrounded by ghosts. If the 8 people still stayed in the Cinnabar circle, double insurance, and Lily would be there, and the ghosts, I'm afraid I don't dare to go there. But because the 8 people believed in the bewitchment of ghosts. So in the end, the talisman only flashed with golden light, and then gradually dimmed. Before the 8 people could run away, they were caught up by the ghosts who died unexpectedly. Help me, save me. The 8 people who had run out of the circle were now turning blue. Many ghosts surrounded him, and the woman who finally ran out crawled closer to the circle. But the man behind him had the heavenly spirit cover uncovered, and blood was still dripping down. After she had just crawled 2 steps, he dragged her back with force. She screamed miserably, and the voice was extremely sharp. In the end, he was overwhelmed by a group of ghosts. When people in the circle saw this scene, they kept swallowing their saliva, as if their throats were stuck with phlegm. Zhuang Tianming's heart was about to jump out of his mouth. The scene in front of him had exceeded the limit of what he could bear mentally. His lips trembled. His throat was a little clogged. Fortunately, he made the right bet. He listened to Lily and did not leave the circle. Otherwise, the end that awaited him would be the same as the one who just ran out after being tempted by those ghosts. 8 people in general were overwhelmed by the ghosts. Song, Miss Song. Zhuang Tianming trembled, his legs shaking so much that he couldn't control them. He wanted to lean towards Lily, but because of extreme fear, his whole body was as soft as a pile of mud, and he couldn't move at all. When he regained his strength, he stared at the scene outside, wanting to cry without tears. Life or death is determined by fate. This outcome is their own choice. Lily looked at the scene in front of her with a calm expression. Zhuang Tianming had the same fear in his heart before, and everyone in the circle was the same. They were glad that he stayed, and among them, Shenchun was among the survivors. He almost ran out at a thought, but in the end after gathering up the courage to stay, he swallowed when he heard Lily's words, you should be able to save them. There were so many people dead outside, including 8 living lives just now. Lily had the ability, but she refused to save these people. This was really too much in Shenchun's opinion. You can save her for a while, but you can't save your whole life. These people didn't believe her and always harbored malice toward her. That's why they left her without hesitation under the temptation of people who died unexpectedly and turned into ghosts, even if Lily was here. I have repeatedly warned them not to leave the circle. Even if she saves them this time, these people will probably take it for granted and may not necessarily accept her kindness and think that she should save people. In this case, why should she bother to save them? What's more, those 8 people don't trust her. Even if she can be saved this time, what will happen next time? So far in this house, the madam mentioned by the female ghost who possesses Lily Song at the end of the plot has not appeared yet. If the biggest ghost appears, these people will no longer be able to withstand the temptation. Sooner or later he will die. Whoever dies is their own choice and has nothing to do with her. Shenchun was speechless by her. He knew that Lily was right. In fact, he did not trust Lily 100% at the beginning. He also believed that if these people were not ghosts, but real people, he would probably run away in the end, but he thought so. When he actually heard Lily say this, Shenchun still felt a little uncomfortable. 8 living lives are placed in front of you, how can you bear it? What's more, they don't know the truth, you should tell them. When he talked about it later, there was a bit of complaint in his words. If Lily hadn't refused to explain before, why would she let these 8 people be bewitched by the evil ghost? So you blame me? Lily smiled and pointed to the opposite side. Anyone with a brain can see it. With such obvious flaws, no matter how bright our flashlight is, we can't illuminate them so brightly, let alone the ground. There is no shadow, and the soles of some people's feet don't even touch the ground when they walk. The floor of the corridor was made of wood, and after so many years, it has long since decayed. When several people came over before, the wood made a creaking sound when they stepped on it. And when they ran over, they only heard the dong-dong footsteps and no creeping sound. This proves that the running sound they just heard was just an illusion created by the evil ghost, who was using some people. To the memories in my ears from many years ago are just played for you to listen to. There are so many loopholes to fall for, and it is hopeless to be so stupid. So you blame me? Lily said every word. Shenchun's face turned red and he couldn't raise his head. After thinking about it carefully, she was right. There were indeed many flaws. Ghosts had no physical body. Therefore, most of their bodies were light when walking, and when they ran over, They could only hear the dong 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 sound on the floor. But they didn't hear the creaking sound when the wood shook. The most important thing was that they had no shadows. Such an obvious fact was in front of them. The reason why many people still selectively ignored it was because everyone was ignored. That sentence, "We can all go out to the old house together, that's why I was tempted." Under extreme fear, people will instinctively believe certain lies and ignore some obvious facts. Everyone wanted to leave this ghost place, so when they saw these ghosts, they did not hesitate to believe it. How could anyone be so calm and make such a calm and decisive judgment when facing such a gloomy and terrifying environment? Shen Chun opened his mouth wide and was speechless by Lily. Lily glanced at him. This man looked very embarrassed after entering the ancient house. She quickly looked away from Shen Chun. "Miss Yuan, do you think what I said is right?" Lily stared with a smile at the only woman in the room who was unhurried and did not reveal the horrific scene before her death. The woman had the exact same face as her, even her calm expression was the same. The two of them wore the same ponytails, and even the strand of hair on Lily's right cheek that she didn't have time to pull up was hanging down beside her face like Lily. The people from the TV station or the association who followed in and died, all showed the tragic state before death after Lily pointed out that they were dead, but she was the only one who did not change at all. Either she was like this before she died, or the face she showed to everyone now was not her true self at all. In other words, even if the newly deceased ghosts are very resentful and have the help of the extremely strong yin qi here, they have certain abilities when they first died. However, because they died not long ago, no matter how full the yin qi is here, these ghosts being able to disguise and deceive people is already great, but compared with the old ghosts, the Taoism is still lacking, especially since Lily carries the Tao Te I Ching, so after drinking it, many ghosts can't help but reveal their true colors. It can be seen that the only woman who can hold the position now has become a trend. Apart from the MRS mentioned by the female ghost possessed by Lily Song in the plot, the only thing Lily knows is that she can only die in this mansion. In the novel, during the Republic of China, the daughter of a warlord surnamed Yuan died here, Miss Yuan, who was childless and finally had an only daughter. As soon as she tentatively called out the name of Miss Yuan, the other Lily froze, pursed her lips, and said nothing. Now, after Lily has figured out that the people around her are actually dead ghosts, she actually no longer needs to pretend to be someone else, but at this moment she still has not changed back to herself. As it was, Lily didn't believe that she looked exactly like herself. Seeing that he had already reached this point in his words, the old ghost was still silent, but he was not as deceptive as he was at the beginning, so he couldn't help but sneered. Zhuang Tianming heard Lily call out the words Miss Yuan. Still a little uneasy, he glanced at Lily. "Miss Song, how do you know her?" "She is." This woman looked exactly like Lily. Zhuang Tianming tried hard to remember who among the people who followed him in this time there was no one with the surname Yuan. He didn't remember the origin of the word Miss Yuan for a while, and he thought this ghost who looked very similar to Lily had something to do with Lily. As soon as this question came out of her mouth, Lily reached out and lifted up the strand of hair beside her ear and hooked it behind her ear. "I guessed." People in the circle were actually curious about Zhuang Tianming's question, but no one expected Lily to give such an answer. Several people in the circle were stunned for a moment, and Zhuang Tianming's eyes were blank. Lily said again. When entering this ancient house, people from the association had already investigated the origin of the house. The house was built in the late Qing dynasty. The person who first built the house was a fifth-grade fellow who retired from old age and returned to his hometown. He originally wanted to live here for the rest of his life, but he didn't. I thought that all of the family died in this house, so the house was regarded as unknown. It was resold several times until after the Republic of China. Once Lily made this move, Shen Chun on the side still didn't know what was going on, but Zhuang Tianming and others besides him shuddered in excitement. obviously remembering what the people from the association said during the meeting that day. Story. At that time, people in the association probably never dreamed that this story, which was regarded as legendary by the people in the association at the beginning, would end up with such terrible things. At that time, Zhuang Tianming and others did not take this story seriously. I kept the story in my heart, just treating it as a folk legend for fun, but I never thought that such a story would most likely be true. However, Shen Chan only regarded the invitation from the association as a free trip that day. I am not interested in the activities of the association. During the meeting that day, he had already found an excuse to run out of the hotel and wander around, so he missed this story. The warlord surnamed Yuan married countless wives and took concubines in his life, but in the end he only gave birth to an only daughter. He originally loved him like the apple of his eye. He renovated this house and built it to be more grand and prosperous. It was originally for the benefit of his daughter in the future. It's for the purpose of recruiting a son-in-law, but whoever thought of moving into this house would end up with weird things happening. The corner of Lily's mouth curled up, and as she spoke, the originally expressionless expression of the other Lily gradually changed. She couldn't maintain her numb and cold expression at the beginning, and gradually became excited. Her face, which was modeled after a lily, first showed a look of sadness and nostalgia, and then a look of extreme fear. When Lily called her Miss Yuan at first, it was true as Lily said, she was just making random guesses, but now when she saw the expression of this other self, there was something she didn't understand. Ms. Yuan died in this ancient house, and the Yuan family naturally disappeared. Lily finished the story and stared at the female ghost. Ordinary ghosts, like them who died recently, are out of character. In my eyes, in front of you, you were able to show your pre-death appearance after being scolded by me, and you were able to hide it from those idiots. But you are still maintaining the illusion to deceive others, which shows that you are old. I think I should not have guessed. Wrong. After Chen Chun and others heard this, they all shuddered excitedly. If what Lily guessed was true, then the person in front of them was an old ghost who had been dead for hundreds of years. Seeing those who had been with him before when the people who entered the ancient house together died here and became ghosts, the remaining people in the circle were already very scared. Now that they heard that a more terrifying ghost appeared in this ancient house, everyone was even more frightened and scared to death. Wiping tears, but not even daring to take a breath. Now that I have exposed your identity, do you still want to pretend to be me? Who would believe you? Do you love my face so much, and now you are still unwilling to show your true face? Or are you? What have you done, so shameless to see people? Lily looked indifferent. After hearing her words, the other Lily gradually lowered his head and clasped his hands. Lily added, "Is it possible? Do you still want to wait for me to take action and send you to the underworld?" Humph! The Lily who had been motionless suddenly moved at this moment. She had lowered her head and sneered twice in a row. When she suddenly raised her head, the face that was originally the same as Lily's appeared in a blink of an eye. In a blink of an eye, it had been replaced by another face. That face was extremely white, and her hair was disheveled. The t-shirt and jeans that were exactly the same as Lily's were transformed into a thick blue shroud in the blink of an eye. She was young when she died, that people at that time were much more particular than people today. Although the Qing dynasty required Han people to wear flag uniforms after entering the customs, they made a request to the court that the flag uniforms should remain unchanged even in life and death, that is, they should wear flag uniforms when they are alive and still wear them after death. Han costume. This rule was still used until the Republic of China. Because Lily has studied the Tao Te Ching, she has participated in many tasks related to dealing with ghosts. At this time, the shroud worn by the girl ghost can probably be judged from the dynasty she lived in when she was alive. She wore an embroidered dress with 5 collars and 3 waists. The shroud of the 5 bats is made of 5 tops and 3 culottes, made of blue silk, and covered with a white cover embroidered with the 8 immortals. Generally, the older the deceased, the more layers of the shroud will be after death, and the number must be an odd number. In pairs, the top must be 2 more than the skirt and trousers. Miss Yuen died when she was young. Although her family was well off, her father was a warlord and loved her as much as his eyes. Unfortunately, because she died young, she ended up wearing only one. Just 5 pieces. To be continued. Carrot. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan Erwr. Chapter 1207. But even so, Miss Yuen has a slender figure, and the 5 thick silk clothes she wears still look empty. It can be seen from her hat, shoes, and socks that they are undoubtedly the customs of the Republic of China. She was born in the Republic of China and they are close in age. Even though she did not admit it herself, except for the eldest lady of the Yuen family, Lily really couldn't figure out who else was there. They ran away. Miss Yuen chuckled. In this situation, she looked like the scene before her death. When she smiled, her cheeks seemed to be stiff, and it took brute force to pull the smile away. Normally, she maintains her posthumous appearance, wearing a shroud and makeup on her face. Her cheeks are smeared with thick white powder, and her lips are smeared with red lipstick. When she smiles, she has a smile that is not fleshy. The way he smiled was extraordinarily charming. Seeing it like that made several people in the circle tremble. Shen Chun used to be a staunch atheist, but when he saw this scene, the real female ghost appeared in front of him. It almost scared him to tears. The man who had always shouted that there were no ghosts in the world now realized how ignorant and stupid he had been before. He was deeply afraid that he would move out of the circle. He tightly grasped the amulet Lily gave him with both hands and hugged him tightly. Legs, he buried his face on his knees, but there was a cold wind around him. He buried his head for a while and then raised his head. This raise made him scream wow, and almost rolled out of the cinnabar circle. Oh my God, Miss Yuen, who was still far away from him before, had come to him at some point. Her strands of black hair were flying, her face was so white that it was so white, and she was holding a hand. A flashlight made her face seem transparent. His eyes were bottomless black, but his mouth was smeared cherry red. The shroud he was wearing was flying in the wind, and a chill came over him. Shen Chun was so frightened that he peed his pants. He suddenly raised his head and came face to face with the female ghost. The feeling was so terrifying that his soul was almost sucked away by the female ghost's eyes. After coming back to his senses, Shen Chun crawled towards Lily like crazy. Lily song, Lily save me, we will get married when we get back. Take me back, please. He crawled over and hugged Lily's legs desperately. He kept shouting in fear, and spittle spewed out of his mouth unconsciously, but he seemed not to feel it. His body was shaking violently. Because of nervousness and fear, his hands grasped Lily's legs so tightly that it hurt. When he heard Shen Chun shouting, Lily subconsciously swung her legs to kick him out. Under normal circumstances, Lily has been practicing star training for half a year. She also practiced with the Tao Te I Ching at the same time, and her strength was much greater than that of Song Lily. Although Shen Chun was a man with some strength, he should not be her match. Her kick was enough to kick Shen Chun out of the circle. But I wonder if people always have infinite potential to be unleashed in times of crisis. The moment Shen Chun saw Miss Yuen suddenly going crazy and approaching, his whole body collapsed, and he didn't know where he got the strength from. He held Lily tightly. Even if Lily just kicked hard, they couldn't kick him away. Instead, he seemed to be sitting on Lily's feet and swinging in a circle. He was thrown out and returned back the same way. Lily was a little surprised at this moment. Shen Chun, a staunch atheist before, was still talking nonsense. Save me. Take me out. We will get married when we get back. Get married when we get back. The real ghost was right in front of him. When Miss Yuen appeared in the plot, she was possessing Lily Song. She did not appear in such a ferocious and terrifying original form, nor did she scare Shen Chun to this extent. At first, she pretended to be Lily Song and deceived Shen Chun. At that time, Shen Chun felt that Lily Song had changed as a person, becoming docile, introverted and well-behaved, just like a lady from ancient times. He felt distressed, as if she would rely on him and regard him as his heaven. This greatly satisfied the vanity of Shen Chun, a grown man, so he took care of her in every way. After entering this ancient house and discovering many strange things, he had a special regard for Lily Song, who was possessed by Miss Yuen, so he would say nice words to coax her from time to time. In Lily's opinion, Shen Chun, who was smooth-tongued and out of character, found it very strange that Miss Yuen, who was only 15 or 16 years old when she died, was still at an innocent and romantic age, and was born in an inner house. She had often seen men who were well educated and courteous. During her lifetime, she had attended many high society gatherings and had seen the behavior of those well-known young men. Those people behaved and spoke according to the rules. Some of them even behaved according to the rules of the Qing government. His personality is a bit old-fashioned and pedantic, but how can he be as eloquent as Chen Chun? From the beginning, she wanted the lives of Shen Chun and others, but later on she actually developed some admiration for Shen Chun. She was still unmarried before she died. In fact, it was also true for Miss Yuen that she was still unmarried after her death. It's a pity, what girl doesn't have a child? She fell in love with Shen Chun, who was handsome and seemed to her to be extremely eloquent, and naturally she no longer wanted his life. One person and one ghost fell in love with each other in this ancient house. Even if she later confessed her identity, Shen Chun had already fallen in love with her. In an era like this, when every woman strives to strengthen herself, there could still be a docile beauty who regarded her husband as her first priority in ancient times. Shen Chun naturally fell in love with her. She felt different. Even after knowing that she was not a human being, she liked her. She missed the time of fear at the beginning, and Miss Yuen had never shown her true face. Shen Chun had never been afraid like this. The situation was different at this time. Miss Yuen was forced to reveal her true body by Lily. Her appearance before death was not good looking, and now she looked extremely ferocious. Shen Chun was so frightened that she cried out while holding Lily's thigh. It's so noisy, Lily was hugged tightly by him, and his wails and howls were so noisy that it made people upset. Without thinking, Lily raised her hand and slapped Shen Chun hard on the face. Shen Chun was beaten so hard that his face turned sideways. Even though half of his cheek was numb and hot and he couldn't feel the pain at all, he still didn't let go of his hand. Seeing him crying, Lily felt disgusted, so she slapped him away from his face, then grabbed his clothes, and shook his foot harder. When she shook again this time, she had already used her true strength on her legs, and Shen Chun's hand that was holding her thighs could not help but loosen. When he came back to his senses, his body had been fluttered out by Lily. His eyes widened in horror, and he saw his body flying into the air out of the corner of his eye. Under the ground is the cinnabar circle. The cinnabar circle that had previously been thought to be able to accommodate people now seemed unusually small after he was kicked flying up. Shen Chun was so frightened that he lost his mind. He was so frightened that he lost his voice. His throat was hoarse and he couldn't scream. He danced and danced, trying to force himself to stop. He wanted to return to the cinnabar circle and not fall out. But when a person is in mid-air, how can he help him? Miss Yuen's ghost, who was still behind, suddenly appeared in mid-air out of thin air. Shen Chun was kicked from bottom to top by Lily, but she was pressed from top to bottom in mid-air. She was floating in the mid-air with her teeth and claws open, and her head of black hair was floating in the mid-air as if corpse worms had come alive. The quilt and shroud on her body were flying. Shen-chun was horrified and found that he was getting closer and closer to her. She was grinning, her face that was as white as paper was extremely stiff, and her crimson mouth that was spread like a cherry was wide open. Because of her red lips and pale face, her slightly yellowed teeth were exposed. It was such a terrible scene. How terrifying it is. Shen-chun had never dreamed of such a terrifying scene in his life. He only felt the temperature of his body drop rapidly. At this moment, he had forgotten to curse Lily and everything else, and his mind was empty. The body began to twitch instinctively out of fear. Miss Yuen is getting closer and closer to him. The yin energy on her body and the musty and rotten smell of being in the coffin for a long time came, along with the unique smell of death after the coffin was sealed. Shen-chun screamed ah and saw Miss Yuen rushing towards him. Stretched out his hand. His heart seemed to burst with excitement, facing such a terrifying scene. Finally he couldn't bear it anymore, rolled his eyes and passed out. The moment he was about to fall out of the cinnabar circle, when Miss Yuen's eyes showed a bit of ferocious and eager joy, Lily snorted coldly, "It's worthless." The next moment Miss Yuen was about to touch Shen-chun, who suddenly rushed towards her, seemed to be dragged back by someone. Lily's figure appeared behind him. Lily grabbed his clothes with one hand and pushed him back with her backhand. Pulling into the cinnabar circle, there was a bang sound, and Shen-chun was thrown to the ground. His body was still twitching and shaking, and he was already unconscious. Miss Yuen never expected that such a change would suddenly happen. The next moment she tried to dodge, it was already too late. The sky and the earth are infinite, and the universe is orderly. Lily stretched out her hand to hold a piece of talisman paper, and quickly drew a magic spell in mid-air. Before the smile on Miss Yuen's face fell, Lily had already curled up her lips, and she had already drawn a talisman in the air. The good talisman's hand held a 5 thunder spell at the same time, and pressed it towards her face. "Break it for me." Ah! A sharp and unusual scream suddenly came out of Miss Yuen's mouth, and a bolt of lightning mixed with thunder struck her head. Her head suddenly seemed to be split open alive. Miss Yuen's face with expressions of shock and anger, the group of ghosts not far away were frightened to the point of being shaken by the sound of huge thunder, and they all dispersed with a bang. Although Miss Yuen has long since died and her body is composed of yin energy, she has been dead for a long time and the yin energy here is too strong. In fact, her body has already become a substance. Lily has broken most of her yin energy at once. Angry, her originally solid vagina was now somewhat translucent. She screamed repeatedly, obviously badly hurt, and her soul began to flicker. She quickly retreated, with a look of fear and resentment in her eyes. He glanced at Lily from a distance, screamed, and disappeared without a trace. Lily jumped from mid-air to the ground, and everyone in the underground cinnabar circle seemed to be fished out of the water. They were shaking violently as if their end was approaching. Zhuang Tianming almost cried. When he saw the ghosts leaving, he trembled. Song, girl, she, can she leave? Zhuang Tianming is not a person who makes a fuss so easily. Most of what happened tonight was beyond his imagination, and it really made him unable to bear it. Lily shook her head and saw that Shen-chun on the ground had already started to foam at the mouth. The 3 souls and 7 souls were already a little unstable. They were shaking as if they were having epilepsy. She raised her legs and pushed towards Shen-chun kicked Shen-chun on the head, causing Shen-chun to roll twice. When he was about to roll out of the cinnabar circle, Lily said, "No, this old ghost has become a spirit. If she hadn't used Shen-chun to deceive this old ghost, I'm afraid it wouldn't have been so easy to seriously injure Miss Yuen." Although Lily is not afraid of these things, if Miss Yuen really confronts her head-on, ghosts will always be ghosts and are controlled by Taoism. However, it is easy to hide from open guns and hard to guard against hidden arrows. The most important thing is that Miss Yuen is a ghost. There are many dangers in the house. If she wants to hide, it will be much easier than finding her by herself, so Lily uses Shenchan to set up a trap. She pretended to kick Shenchan out of the circle, but Miss Yuen was so happy that she was fooled, and she got the opportunity to stick the talisman paper on Miss Yuen, causing her to suffer a big loss. What Lily didn't expect was that Shenchan would be so useless. Before he came in, he acted like he was not afraid of anything. But when he saw a ghost, he became frightened. Before anyone could touch him, he had already fainted. It was so funny. If it weren't for the fact that the Song and Shen families were family friends, except for Shenchan, his grandfather and parents were not bad to the original owner. A right way is to repay kindness and revenge. It would be fine if she didn't like Shenchan, but if this good-for-nothing Shenchan died here, the Song and Shen families would probably have knots in their hearts. Therefore, Lily was only prepared to teach him a lesson. She never thought of letting him die here. How could she have imagined that he would be like this? There was no future, so he hugged her thigh and begged for mercy. Thinking of this, Lily couldn't help but raise her leg and kicked Shenchan again. Zhuang Tianming and others did not dare to say a word when they saw this scene. Now that they have discovered Lily's true ability, how can the remaining people still survive? Anyone dare to go against her again? Not to mention that she was just kicking and beating Shenchan to vent her anger. Even if Lily said she wanted to kill Shenchan if he didn't like it, few people would definitely not dare to help Shenchan. Then, what should we do? Will she come back again? Zhuang Tianming and others almost cried when they heard that Miss Yuen was not a big problem. Miss Yuen was young when she died, but she was really scary. Everyone was scared out of their wits. As soon as Zhuang Tianming said this, thinking that the female ghost would most likely come back, they all started to cry in despair. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 1208. Although she didn't take her life, she was still badly hurt. It's not that easy to come back. Lily shook her head. After hearing this, Zhuang Tianming felt a little at ease. Before he spoke, Lily then he said, but you don't want to leave the Cinnabar circle for the time being. The old ghost named Yuen was seriously injured and won't be able to come back for a while. However, I'm afraid something else is coming. While he was talking, she could only hear the sound of voyage breathing, occasionally mixed with the sound of dong dong dong, and the rapid ringing of ling 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 came from somewhere not far away. It seemed that everything started to creak again. In the dark night without any light, there were weeds all around, and nothing could be seen. Only the faint light of the flashlights held by a few people in the circle drawn with cinnabar, a smell like rotten meat. The smell comes, making people want to vomit. Such a scene where you can't see anything, imagining the scene in your mind is far more terrifying than actually seeing the scene happen with your naked eyes. The bright red cinnabar that the lilies had just painted on the ground began to fade in color at a speed visible to the naked eye, from bright red at the beginning to orange, gradually turning yellow, and even turning faintly gray. The surrounding weeds were swaying desperately. Seeing this scene, people in the circle were so frightened that they pointed to the ground and could not say a word. Zoo, zoo, zoo. No one could say a coherent sentence, they just kept shaking. Many people clenched their teeth tightly. Lily looked serious in the sound of Gruck, something was coming. Miss Yuen and others had just been beaten away, so it was impossible for them to come back so quickly, even if they came back so quickly, just for a traumatized old ghost. As well as a group of newly deceased resentful souls, it would not be difficult for her to clean up. In the circle, Chen Chan seemed to feel the yin energy getting stronger and stronger. He gradually woke up and saw the color of the cinnabar on the ground getting lighter. Just looking at it made my hands and feet feel cold, and I wished I could continue to fall asleep. If he fainted, dying unconsciously would be much better than dying soberly in despair, pain, and fear. Heaven and earth are infinite. Lily recited a spell quickly, and placed a 5 thunder curse in each direction according to the directions of the 5 elements and Bagua. Lanai is the nemesis of all evil spirits. In addition, she used the power of the 5 elements and Bagua array to lock the invasion of yin energy. The cinnabar that originally gradually faded in color slowly stopped turning gray. The original circle, the few people who felt the coldness calmed down again. Lily put a drop of her own blood essence on each talisman paper. After doing all this, she sealed the wound on her middle finger with magic power, then mixed the cinnabar with the blood that dripped before and drew a circle again. This time, when she drew the circle again, the color of the cinnabar was faintly red. Shining with golden light, the surrounding area was instantly expelled due to the yin qi. The temperature suddenly rose a lot, but the people in the circle were nervous and scared, and their blood flow speed accelerated. In addition, they had shed too much cold sweat before, and they still looked extremely scared at this time. Don't move around at will, otherwise if you move the talisman paper, don't blame me. Lily was about to warn them. In fact, there was no need for her to say more at this moment. When their lives were seriously threatened, everyone had already. They no longer dare to move around and hug themselves into a ball. Not far away, a large number of black shadows were pressing over here. Weeds half as tall as a person were trampled underfoot, and many people still had mud on their bodies. As they got closer, the stench became stronger. In the thick black fog, I can't see their faces clearly, but it's just like Lily said. Where did the living people come from in this ancient house? Except for a few people who have reached this point under Lily's care, who else can survive here? It seemed to be clear at a glance whether the person coming was dead or alive. Are we going to die here? Some people looked desperate and couldn't help but ask questions. As soon as he said this, no one dared to give him a guarantee. In fact, he asked this question and everyone wanted to get an answer urgently. The speaker didn't get it for a long time, with a look of despair. I don't want to die yet. Who among the people present wants to die? His words aroused infinite fear in everyone's hearts, and many people started crying. Lily was upset by the noise, and shouted coldly, "Stop making noise, the real owner hasn't come out yet, why are you crying?" Her words made the hearts of people in the circle begin to sink again, as if they were falling into a bottomless pit. What happened today has continuously exceeded the bottom line that everyone can accept, but Lily even said that the real owner has not come out. Shen Chun asked in despair, then, what is it that appears now? There was something wrong with his expression, as if he was forcing himself to be calm, and Lily didn't even look at him. In the former Qing dynasty, when the 5th-ranked magistrate returned to his hometown, was it possible that everyone in the government died cleanly? After hearing her words, several people shuddered excitedly. It was obvious that Lily's meaning was very clear when she asked this question. Song. Zhuang Tianming could no longer pronounce Lily's name clearly. His tongue seemed to be tied in knots, but he knew very well in his heart that he understood what Lily meant. He also remembered the people from the association at that time. The story was told in a joking tone. After the 5th-ranked magistrate returned to his hometown, he built this house in order to spend the rest of his life here, but for some unknown reason, everyone in the house died. Later, the house was regarded as unknown and was resold several times. Zhuang Tianming's body was shaking violently. The girl Yuan who appeared before was just an old ghost who had been dead for 100 years, but she was already so fierce. Before the warlord surnamed Yuan snatched the house had already experienced many years. In other words, 5th grade Tongzi and others died here, and the house lay dormant for many years before Miss Yuan appeared later. The direct meaning of Lily's words is that these people are most likely the servants of the 5th grade magistrate. Their death time is much longer than that of Miss Yuan, and they are definitely more terrible. If this circle could stop one Miss Yuan before, could it possibly stop several Miss Yuan who are even more powerful than the evil ghost before? Shen Chun closed his eyes in despair. There was a deathly silence in the circle. No one dared to speak. When things came to an end, Shenchun suddenly asked, "Then, if these things are not the real owners, who is?" Lily ignored him, but in fact, in Lily's heart, he already vaguely understood. She thought of what Miss Yuen said to Madame when she possessed Lily Song's body later. She must have something to do with that fifth-grade fellow. That colleague must have done something to offend someone. It is very likely that the person he offended was some kind of lady. Since she can make someone like Miss Yuen take advantage of her, she must be very good at what she does. That so-called madam was able to kill at least dozens of people in Tongzi's house, and she was able to kill Miss Yuen. If you think about it, you will know that her method is extraordinary. It's really not that simple to get out of this house, but now we have to solve the situation in front of us first. As if feeling the power of the Cinnabar circle here, those black figures did not come closer, but looked at it from a distance. This was not an option. After all, the house was full of yin energy, and one could not see his fingers. The deeper into the house, the more so. The longer they stay inside, the worse it will be. These things don't know how to be hungry and just wait for the rabbit. People are different. Although Lily had picked up a lot of food and water when she killed those people who were about to turn into corpses, but these things it is always limited. Once it is eaten up, not to mention that the circle drawn at that time is very likely to be destroyed. Even if the power of the circle is still there, being trapped here without food and water will always be a dead end. Lily thought for a moment, "You guys stay in the circle, I have to go out." Several people in the circle were surprised when they heard what she said. Shenchun subconsciously asked, "What are you doing out there?" After he said this himself, he felt stupid. Something was obviously wrong outside. It was so dark. There must be something wrong. It's just that due to the power of the circle here, these things didn't dare to come. Lily obviously wanted to leave the circle. "Bring these things away and put them away." As expected, Lily sneered and glanced at him. "What are you talking about? I said it first. After I go out, the circle will have the power of my spell to prevent these things from entering the circle. But if you move around, or if you go out of the circle, your death has nothing to do with me. I will not save anyone alone." She spoke in a cold and ruthless way, but everyone dared to be angry and dare not say anything after hearing this. But when they heard that she was going after destroying these things, everyone was faintly happy. Anyway, as long as it's not him who goes out and the circle is safe, even if something happens to Lily, as long as they are still alive. Zhuang Tianming was a little worried. Lily had saved him several times along the way. Although he was also scared, he accepted Lily's advice. "Why don't you wait a minute? It's been several hours since we came in. Someone will always find something wrong. Since the circle can be controlled, wait a minute. When people outside find something wrong, they will always send people in to check." Before he could finish his words, a woman lowered her head and did not dare to look at Lily. "Pulled him, didn't you say that there is something more powerful?" As soon as she said the vague words, Lily glanced at her with a smile, but not a smile. Including Zhuang Tianming, Lily, and Shenchun, there were a total of 7 people in the circle. Everyone understood what the woman meant. She was nothing but worried. This place is so evil, and the circle drawn by Lily doesn't seem to be infallible. Just like the previous Cinnabar circle was able to suppress those who died in the association, but it does not mean that it can definitely suppress these new old ghosts. Lily herself had said before that there was something far scarier than those old ghosts in this house. If that were the case, the circle might not be able to contain it by then. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 1209. In addition, if there is one more person in the circle, from the perspective of the woman speaking, it is like one more person sharing the resources of Cinnabar. It is like a group of people staying in a sealed space. One more person can breathe more freshly. For the same reason that others need to take less breath of air, the woman thought that once Lily left the circle, the pressure in the circle would be reduced, and she hoped that she could hold on for a while longer. Next, things outside are so evil. Isn't Lily capable? Going out to eliminate one person will put less pressure on the circle and eliminate more. If she can clear everything here, everyone will be happy. If not, it will be less of a threat and they can wait a little longer. Time to wait until foreign aid comes in. The most important thing is that Lily thought of these things and waited for them. The woman also thought that food resources were in short supply. With one less person, she could get more resources and could hold on for a while longer. But no one is a fool. Zhuang Tianming glanced at this woman and said to Lily, "Don't listen to her, it's safer to stay in the circle. If we haven't gone out after dawn, the people from the association will definitely find something wrong. They will come in to rescue us, and then everyone will go out together." As soon as Zhuang Tianming said his words, the remaining people felt a little unhappy and secretly scolded him for meddling in other people's business. The woman then spoke again, "That's not necessarily true. So many of us died here after coming in, and the rescuers may not be alive. Lily Song is capable and can kill that thing. She just killed that he was beaten and driven away, and there will be no problem if he goes out. What are you worried about?" The woman was very dissatisfied with Zhuang Tianming's invitation to Lily to stay, and suppressed the urge to yell. He was secretly talking about this old immortal Zhuang Tianming. Everyone knows what kind of roles the people in the association play. If they wait until these people find capable people to come in, it may not even be known how many days will pass. No one will be able to escape then. If these things rush over, will they die? It's better to let Lily go out. Eliminating one is one. If they cannot be eliminated and they die outside, the situation cannot be worse than now. If she had the ability to destroy the things outside, everyone would have a little more hope of survival. When Zhuang Tianming heard the woman's words, he glanced at Lily again and began to curse in his heart. These useless things are not very capable, but they are not small-minded. At least everyone comes in together, and the extra life they can count. After all, it's a life, but because these people are afraid of themselves, they don't care about the safety of others. What's more, this woman is also short-sighted. They don't want to think that if Lily goes out, something will happen to her outside, and the remaining people will not have her help. Can you survive? The most important thing is that if the woman said these words, if she left, how many people would be left here waiting to die? Zhuang Tianming was so anxious that the woman still curled her lips and said, "The most important thing is, didn't she say that there is something more terrifying in this house? She insisted on bringing us in here. Now that something like this happened." The woman muttered. Lily laughed when she heard it. "I said it. If you don't like it, you can leave. No one asked you to come in with me. If you didn't insist on being a hero and taking us out, we wouldn't have to encounter this at all." The woman was also angry. The sight of those ghostly ghosts before had scared her to the point of losing her courage. At this time, Lily was still saying such sarcastic words. She collapsed and shouted, "Since you want to show off, you can just go by yourself." "Stop talking." Zhuang Tianming saw the cold look flashing in Lily's eyes. He suddenly stood up and slapped the woman on the face. He shouted sternly, "Shut up. If it wasn't for Miss Song, she would have gone all the way. If you take us with you, you will be dead like the others before you. Did I said wrong thing?" As soon as the woman was beaten, she immediately seemed to go crazy. "If we go out early, we—" "Shut up." Lily kicked the woman on the head. She was upset, so the kick hit the back of the woman's head, causing her hair to fall apart. Cried out and fell to the ground. When the others saw this scene, they were silent. Lily pulled the strap of her backpack. "If you piss me off, believe it or not, I will destroy the circle." You can ask for it yourself, stay alive. You're a piece of trash. He doesn't have much ability, but he talks a lot. As she spoke, the people in the circle heard her getting angry and saying that she wanted to destroy the circle. They were so frightened that their faces turned blue and white, and they stood close together and did not dare to speak out. Lily sneered, I don't want to save you. If you just stay safe, that's all. If you keep nagging me, believe it or not, I will throw you out. The woman trembled and lay on the ground, not daring to snort. Lily looked at her wherever she arrived, no one else dared to look into her eyes. She pursed her lips and then stepped out into the circle. Once out of the circle, the fishy and rotten smell outside became stronger and stronger. It was like smelling fresh flesh and blood. Beast-like roars sounded. The next moment, the fishy wind seeped out. Lily hadn't turned around yet, and the screams inside had already started, and Lily suddenly turned her head. A face with rotten features was no more than 2 fists away from her face. A dry, black, and thin hand was raised. The back of the hand was already long. She had green fur, and her fingernails were 7 or 8 inches long, and now they almost reached the top of Lily's head. The body of the mummy was so rotten that the bones were visible. The rotting flesh on the outside was dark, and the white bones in the body were vaguely visible. The shape of the mummy was hideous and disgusting, roughly the same shape as the mummy that suddenly emerged from the mud when Lily and others entered the house. Everyone has already seen the terrifying thing about the mummy before. Not to mention being bitten by it, even if they breathed in the breath it exhaled, many people were poisoned by corpse poison. They didn't expect that such a terrifying thing could exist. Forget it, now another one appeared. The people in the circle were so frightened that their arms trembled and they screamed in unison. The eyes of the mummy had already lost their luster like 2 shriveled grapes, but at this moment Lily suddenly turned its head, and a look of human fear appeared on its face. The next moment Lily took out the talisman without hesitation. She put the paper on its head, reached out and grabbed a handful of its hair, intending to twist its head off, but the hair had already rotted away. Lily grabbed the hair and it fell gently. When it fell into her hands it turned into a handful of ashes. The mummy was offended by this, as if suddenly furious, and raised its palms again. Lily grabbed its arms, lifted it up, and smashed it to the ground hard, only to hear a bang with a sound. The mummy was smashed to the ground. Before it could get up, Lily had already pasted the talisman on its forehead again, and said hurriedly, broken. A purple lightning flashed, and the mummy's terrifying head turned into black ash with a soft porphy sound from its body, falling all over the ground. Lily's palms were already bruised. After she killed a mummy, a strong wind hit from behind. She turned around and entered the circle to avoid the attack from behind. The mummy that rushed behind her couldn't dodge and bumped into the circle. When people in the circle saw this scene, they seemed to feel the scene when Shen Chun was face to face with Miss Yuan, the old ghost in Tsingyi. They were so frightened that they screamed loudly, the sound was extremely shrill. But something strange happened at the next moment. When the mummy hit, it didn't hit everyone as people in the circle imagined. It seemed to be blocked by an invisible halo, which in the eyes of ordinary people was just ordinary. The cinnabar circle burst out with bright golden light after the mummy collided with it. The mummy seemed to have encountered a restrained natural enemy. A burnt smell came out, and half of its body was burned to death at once, leaving a thick black liquid. Flowing down from the place where it was injured by the circle, a strange scream came out of the mummy's mouth. After landing, half of its body had been burned. It crawled on the ground twice and did not dare to come over again. When it couldn't escape for a moment, Lily hurriedly stepped out of the circle. A spell she had prepared long ago was pressed on her fingertips. She drew the spell with her fingers and added the power of the spell. The injured mummy was severely injured by cinnabar and Lily cast a spell and turned into grey and black again, scattering outside the circle. After easily eliminating such a mummy, Lily's eyes fell maliciously on the woman who let her out before. "Chen Chun," she suddenly spoke. Shen Chun was frightened by that incident before, and was still trembling now. When he heard her calling his name, he was confused for a moment, and his pale face looked up and stared. Lily looked and saw that the next moment Lily had already walked towards him. In the past, Chen Chun would have thought that Lily approached him because she was in love with him, but it was different today. After he had just hugged Lily's thigh, but was almost thrown out of the cinnabar circle by her, Chen Chun no longer dared to do that again. "Go and think about it." At this moment Lily was walking towards him, and he felt only unspeakable fear in his heart. He kicked his legs back as hard as he could while shaking his head desperately. The weeds on the ground made a squeaking sound as Shen Chun pushed back. The heavy pressure and fear in his heart made the rustling sound of the grass blades become even more infinitely amplified. Shen Chun, finally the collapse couldn't be endured anymore. He opened his mouth in fear and panic but couldn't say a word. Seeing Lily getting closer and closer to him, he finally couldn't bear it anymore and bit his lower lip firmly. The sharp pain forced him to calm down for a while. His lips trembled. Shen Chun ignored the pain in his mouth and was about to open his mouth. Lily had already walked to him, and behind him was the edge of the cinnabar circle. No one among the people sitting was willing to speak for him. Shen Chun shouted in despair. "Lily, me, the two of us, my grandpa." To be continued. Carrot. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan ERWR. Chapter 1210. Chen Chun regretted it. If he had known that there really were ghosts in this world, he would not have dismissed the Taoism passed down by his elders before. As a result, he had no power to fight back in front of Lily at this time. If he had known that one day he would encounter such a situation and need to rely on Lily to save his life, then he should not have said to her that he would never marry her. If he hadn't said so convincingly that day, making Lily completely give up on him, Chen Chun believed that even if he didn't beg her, she would have risked her life to protect him. The most important thing is, if he had known that he would encounter so many things in this industry, he would never be greedy for such a small advantage. He thought that this trip was just for free food, drinks, and travel. He shouldn't have come to such a place even if he was killed. It's a pity. It was too late to regret it now. In Chen Chun's desperate eyes, Lily laughed out loud and reached out her hand to touch his waist. He screamed, and Lily slapped him without even thinking about it. She slapped him, and when the slap hit his cheek, it was painful, but it actually made him calm down a lot. "What's your name?" As the sound of slaps and Lily's scolding sounded, Chen Chun's scream suddenly stopped. Lily stepped forward and grabbed the belt buckle around his waist. With just a shake of her arm, Chen Chun's scream, her body rose into the air involuntarily, and the belt on his pants was pulled out by Lily. She held the belt and shook it, making a loud pop sound, and then she turned her eyes to the silent man sitting in the corner. Without saying a word, she stopped Zhuang Tianming from staying with her woman. Lily has never been a person who repays kindness with kindness. At this time, her gaze was too direct, and the woman's scalp was numb from looking at her. Finally, unable to hold on any longer, he asked in a trembling voice, "What are you doing?" The woman responded with the sound of the belt being pulled again. Lily walked towards her without saying anything. Everyone was silent when Shen Chun was chased just now. The woman also shrank into a corner, and now she finally felt the same feeling that Shen Chun felt before. In such a cold old house, Shen Chun was scared to death just a moment ago and was sweating like rain all over his body. When I saw the scene the next moment, I still couldn't help but laugh happily. "You were very active before, didn't you want me to get out of the circle and eliminate those things?" Lily curled her lips and spoke softly, but in this environment, she still held the belt in her hand, looking obviously malicious. The way he looked, smiling like this, was simply more frightening than not smiling at all. The woman shook her head desperately, but it had no effect. Lily easily caught her, who was paralyzed with fear, in his hands. "I think you are happy to help everyone." As soon as the woman heard this, she knew it was not a good thing. She struggled desperately, but Lily still tied her hands with a belt. Because these mummies had been dead for hundreds of years, and the yin energy in this place was too strong, the condition of the mummies when they died was abnormal. The 3 souls and 7 souls are sealed in the skin, so after death, the body decays, but the soul cannot be reincarnated, so that the last breath before death is held in the body, forming a walking corpse. Because of the erosion of yin qi, resentment, and corpse qi, the mummies here are extremely ferocious, but there is no spiritual energy to nourish them, and they cannot be illuminated by the sun and the moon to form mummies. These things have become a climate, and they are all very powerful, and Lily has fought with them before. I don't know how these mummies died. The corpse aura on his body was very strong, and Lily had the Tao Te Ching in her body, but when she grabbed these mummies, the corpse aura could penetrate her body. It's not difficult to deal with 3 or 5 mummy lilies. But the difficulty is that this mansion was originally built by fellow intellectuals who retired from old age and returned to their hometown, and the people in the mansion don't know where they are. But there must be more than 3 or 5. With such a large wave of mummies rushing up, Lily has to think about it even if she is pregnant with the Tao Te Ching. Especially since there was obviously something more powerful in the house. If that thing suddenly appeared unprepared, these mummies would come out to fight with her, like a cartwheel battle. Her strength would be exhausted, and she might be injured here. Lily had not considered this when she went out of the circle just now, but the situation was compelling and she knew she couldn't do it, but because she killed a mummy and quickly returned to the circle, a mummy caught up and bumped into the cinnabar circle. After being severely injured, Lily came up with a good way. Although the mummies are fierce, they are just dead corpses after all. They are driven by instinct. Although there is something controlling them behind the scenes, as long as the so-called madam in Miss Yuan's mouth does not appear behind the scenes, then although they are scary, they are still just corpses. That's all. The things behind them want to wait and see, but Lily can also sit back and wait. The mummies like to eat blood, and if any strangers run out of the circle, they will definitely pounce on them. Instead of Lily rushing out to fight these mummies, it would be better for her to abduct the mummies one by one and use the circle drawn with cinnabar to severely injure them first. Then take the opportunity to affix a talisman and recite a spell to eliminate it. If you don't want to attract the mummies, you can also take a rest. It's the best of both worlds. As for the person she used as bait to lure the mummy, it was naturally the selfish woman just now. Lily tied her up and kicked her out amidst the woman's screams. The woman's scream was sharp and miserable. As soon as she came out of the circle, 2 mummies came upon the wind. The woman's hands were tied by Lily. With her back facing outside the circle, she only felt numbness in her back, and a cold breath rushed towards her face. Although she could not see the face of the mummy, it was precisely because she could not see anything that it was worse than letting her face. She was still scared when she saw something. She screamed so hard that her voice became hoarse. The smell of fishy and rotting flesh hit her, and she was so scared that her nose and tears flowed down. Lily had already flicked her wrist, and the woman fell into the circle. The rushing mummy suddenly hit the cinnabar circle, and the sound of thunder and lightning was heard. Lily stepped out of the circle and pressed the seal she had made long ago on the top of the mummy's head. With a bang, the mummy transformed. It was black and ash, scattered all over the ground. She stepped back again, and the woman with her hands tied had collapsed and gone crazy. Her legs were already wet, her head was shaking, her teeth were rattling, and her lips were black. When everyone saw this scene, they were all stunned and speechless. Just now, Chen Chun was frightened to death by Lily approaching him and pulling his belt. He remembered that when Lily almost kicked him out of the circle, no one here could help him and he was angry. But now when he saw what happened to the woman, he only then did he realize that Lily was already polite enough to him. Although he was almost kicked out by Lily just now, it was only a near miss. He was not treated as a bait like this woman. If Lily had been slow, I am afraid this woman would have been scratched by the mummy. You. The woman was so angry and scared that she couldn't say a word. She was so frightened that she just lost control. At this moment, she couldn't even care about her shame. She just shook her body and stared at Lily. Lily curled her lips at her. How about me? When I went out to kill mummies, you were very in favor of it. Now I just ask you to make some contributions to everyone. Don't you want to do it anymore? She didn't hide it at all. In revenge for the woman's previous intention of letting him die, the woman was so angry that she burst into tears. The remaining people all lowered their heads and trembled. They were secretly glad that they had not spoken like the one who stood out before, otherwise they would be used as bait by Lily at this time. Maybe it has to be me. When the seal in her hand was completed, Lily kicked the woman out of the circle again. The woman screamed and cried, and the two mummies were attracted again. Lily shook the belt, and the woman fell into the circle, gasping in fright. He was so angry that he couldn't even speak because his body was shaking. After repeating this for 3 or 5 times, there were already more than a dozen black-gray shadows on the ground. Most of the woman's 3 souls and 7 souls were gone. She was foaming at the mouth and her body was twitching. She looked like her end was approaching. With so many mummies dead outside the circle, the so-called madam behind the scenes must have noticed it. Amidst the creaking sound of the wooden boards shaking, the stench gradually faded away and disappeared. People in the circle felt that the surroundings seemed much quieter, and the originally dark places seemed to have turned blue-gray, probably because it was already dawn. Unknowingly, everyone has been staying in this ancient house for a whole day. After a night, the flashlight light is not as bright as before, maybe due to the influence of the yin-qi here. Since the light can be vaguely seen around, this flashlight needs to save some light. Otherwise, if there is no rescue after dark, it will be even more terrifying for everyone to be trapped in the dark. Just when they were about to put away the flashlight, they realized that because they were too scared last night, everyone hugged each other tightly. Now their bodies were stiff and they couldn't move at all. When they moved, their bones and muscles felt as painful as if they were being pricked by thousands of small needles. Everyone had not slept all night, and they all had pale faces and gloomy expressions. Zhuang Tianming's hair was messy, his clothes were wrinkled, there was a dark purple circle under his eyes, and his lips were blue. He looked very special. Horrible. Miss Song, now. If we want to get out, we have to find a way on our own. She suspected that the madam in the house was behind this dawn, and deliberately wanted to give them hope, otherwise the strong yin energy in the house would have blocked the surroundings if it had not been dark yesterday. It was pitch dark, and even if it was really bright outside, it would be impossible to see it, especially after entering the courtyard and the gloomy air became even stronger. Unfortunately, the phone is affected by the yin-qi and cannot be turned on. I don't know what time it is now. Even if people outside find that something is wrong inside, it will not be possible to come in and rescue them in a short while. Lily took out bread from her bag and filled her stomach with mineral water. Apart from her face being a little paler, she was not as ugly as Zhuang Tianming and others. After all, she had spiritual power in her body and practiced orthodox Taoism. Yin-qi had no influence on her. The impact is limited. Although I haven't slept all night, I still look energetic as long as I meditate for a while. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 1211. There are still tough battles to be fought ahead. I don't ask you to help me, but you'd better not hold back and keep up with me. Lily ate while talking without raising her head. I will guard you here for an hour. You try to sleep for a while so that you can keep up with me later. If any of you can't sleep, I have a way to close your five senses and make you fall asleep. Tell me if you need it. The mummies were eliminated last night, and the spiritual power in Lily's body was also consumed. She will face something more powerful later, and there is also Miss UN. There is a tough battle to be fought, and she has to find a way to use her spiritual power. Make up. Where can everyone sleep? This place scares me to death, and I heard Lily say that there is a way to close their senses and make them sleep. Everyone wants it, but after seeing the misery of the woman last night, no one dares to cooperate with Lily now. By the way, everyone raised their hands one by one. Even Shen Chun raised his hands timidly. Lily sealed their acupuncture points one by one and used talismans to make them sleepy. After a night of fatigue, they closed their eyes and fell asleep. The woman next to her hadn't woken up yet after being frightened last night, but just in case, Lily decided to patch her up. This woman was too annoying yesterday, so Lily didn't treat her as well as others. The talisman was broken, but he raised his leg and kicked her head hard, making sure that no one would wake her up from her sleep, and then she stood up straight. The cinnabar circle drawn last night had become much darker after a night. The 5 thunder spells guarding the 4 directions of the Bagua array were now starting to turn gray. She completely replaced all the talisman papers and used cinnabar circle again. Only then did he start practicing star training. When the physical training was completed and the spiritual power consumed in the body had been replenished, when Lily opened her eyes, the color of the cinnabar around her dimmed again. The talisman stickers on the bodies of the people in the circle have turned gray, and they instinctively lean together while sleeping. Lily did not plan to repaint the cinnabar circle this time, but instead took pictures of Zhuang Tianming and others one by one. Wake up, gone. I heard Lily say she was leaving. A man was a little surprised at first, and then a little wary. Let's go? Go, where? At first, the man thought Lily meant leaving the house when she said leave, but then he thought about Lily not leaving when she found the first mummy yesterday, and it was even less likely that she would leave now. He crossed his arms tightly. Asked in a low voice, and Lily's answer was exactly what he thought. Of course, I followed the original route. I went out from behind the house. Now everyone has walked through 2 houses, encountered mummies, and met Miss UN. There is still one last courtyard left to enter. So far, everyone has not met the so-called madam. It is conceivable that the madam should be at the end. In the courtyard. Lily had obviously said it herself, that madam was extremely powerful. It is even more likely that the person who killed this entire ancient house, and the real culprit who killed Miss UN and others, now Lily wants to touch her again. This is not because she knows that there are tigers in the mountain, but wants to go to the tiger mountain. The man was so anxious that he blushed, but out of the corner of his eye, he saw the woman lying on the ground who was still asleep at the moment. Her face was black and green, motionless, and she looked as if she was dead. He shuddered. There are lessons learned from the past. Even if the man was no longer willing, in order to prevent Behi from settling the scores, he still suppressed the depression in his heart and said cautiously, But Song, Miss Song, didn't you say that in the house? He thought of the mummy last night. Thinking of Miss Yuan's terrifying face last night, she shuddered, and she didn't even dare to mention the word madam anymore. She just stared at Lily pleadingly. I know. When several people looked at her like this, Lily nodded and put her backpack on her back. Is this the vicious ghost behind the house you are talking about? Zhuang Tianming trembled and nodded when he heard what she said. There is indeed something more powerful in the house. If the mummy last night had not been recalled by something, it would not have disappeared suddenly. When she confirmed this, even Zhuang Tianming was frightened and whispered, Why not? Why don't we just wait where we are? It's already bright now. If we don't go out in a few hours, someone will come in. After hearing this, Lily curled her lips and smiled slightly. While everyone in the ancient house was frightened by the series of events, she was the only one who could still laugh despite having dealt with mummies, ghosts, etc. last night. Lily was beautiful, but she had always been cold and indifferent before. This smile was like sunshine breaking through the dark clouds, making people infected by her and involuntarily relaxed. After everyone got to know her, she had no emotions. It was precisely because of such a rare smile that she looked particularly stunning. Even Shen-chan couldn't help but look at her a few more times. Although Lily Song was beautiful in the past, she just looked like that after seeing her too much. Now because of the rareness, I feel that she is much more attractive than before. First of all, Lily coughed, attracting everyone's attention. Even if the rescue team discovers something is wrong inside, the lives of those who come in may not be saved, let alone save us. Even if the Taoist Association's people just invite special soldiers, but the people in the ancient house are not terrorists, but beings that are far more ferocious than humans, so guns and artillery shells may not be effective in this place. Furthermore, even if people from the Taoist Association and the Buddhist Association can find some people with special abilities, first of all, I dare say that these people are not as good as me in cultivation. Secondly, we can't wait that long. Don't talk about food. There was not enough water, so Lily pointed to the cinnabar circle on the ground. Even though she had repainted it more than an hour ago, the color of the cinnabar was still dull and gray again. You see, after you fell asleep, I drew the cinnabar circle again, and the color became lighter again. If I wait until the things in this ancient house sit back and wait, when the magic power in my body is exhausted, and I can no longer draw the circle, if the rescuers from the association haven't arrived yet, have you ever thought about what would happen? Everyone will die in this ancient house and no one can get out. Lily smiled again, but this time she failed to attract people. Instead, after hearing her words, Shen-chan and others were excited. Ling Ling shivered and became silent. Several people also knew that what Lily said was very likely to happen, but everyone did not dare to think that way before, and they all put their only hope in the people of the association. However, after being exposed by Lily, everyone indeed found themselves waiting. So many people came in, only to die inside. Only a few people were left. Even if the Taoist Association sent people in again, wouldn't it be possible for the whole army to be annihilated? Thinking of this, everyone gritted their teeth. Even though they had no appetite to eat at the moment, in order to escape later, they still endured the pain all over their bodies and took out bread, biscuits, and other items to eat. Then they stood up. Come. After coming in yesterday, she was frightened and nervous. She didn't feel anything before, but after resting, her whole body ached terribly. Lily glanced at the woman who was still lying on the ground and didn't move. She suddenly walked towards her and kicked her with her feet. It reached a point on her back vest. Originally, her kick was merciless, and the ache appointment being kicked would double the pain. The woman woke up from the severe pain. As soon as she woke up and saw the lily above her head, she screamed loudly. She stood up, ah! She waved her hands desperately and shouted like crazy, go away, don't come over. Her memory still stayed on the scene yesterday when Lily used it as bait to lure the mummy. At this time, she screamed so hard that her voice became hoarse. She waved around for a long time before Zhuang Tianming hurriedly said, stop making trouble now, we have to leave. When the woman saw Zhuang Tianming, she belatedly realized that it was already dawn. She was stunned for a moment and suddenly burst into tears. You crazy bitch, you! The woman, who was so frightened that she couldn't even speak, could now open her mouth to curse people easily. Lily clenched her fists. Believe it or not, if you say anything again, you don't need me. Kill you, and I will leave you here, and when I come back, you will not even have any bones left. There were so many mummies in the ancient house that one bite from each person was enough to bite the woman to death. The woman was still very angry thinking about what happened yesterday. When she heard Lily's threat, although she was extremely angry, fear still prevailed. And instinctively closed his mouth. Everyone packed up their things and got up. Under the grey sky, everyone saw that the covered bridge not far away directly connected to a corridor, which should be connected to the last courtyard. The corridor was hidden in the thick fog, and it was not clear, as if it led to a bottomless abyss, and no one dared to go there, but they had no choice but to go there. Looking again during the day, everyone found that many of the wooden boards on the corridor floor had been cracked and broken. Weeds in the soil below emerged from the broken places, and they could not help but sway and make a rustling sound in the breeze brought by everyone approaching. The sound comes. The wooden pillars around it were damp and moldy, with many fungus and mushrooms growing out. Even during the day, this ancient house still looked desolate. Knowing that there was something more terrifying behind them, several people subconsciously walked softly. However, the wooden boards in the corridor were in disrepair and had been there for a long time. Every step they took still made a creaking sound. Everyone was on tenterhooks, but no matter how timid they were, when someone was walking behind Lily, there was a sudden sound of wood breaking, and a man let out a rapid and sharp scream. The ancient house was unusually quiet. Everyone could hear their own gasping sounds in their ears. When the man suddenly screamed, everyone except Lily was shocked. When he turned around to look, a man walking in the middle might have stepped on him. When he reached a piece of rotten wood, it couldn't bear his weight and broke suddenly. He fell from the middle, and now the lower half of his body was caught in the wood. To be continued.